Church, what's up?
You already know. Welcome to our podcast as we get a little bit deeper into Sunday morning.
Yeah, and today we're doing something a little bit different.
Yes, absolutely.
So if it's your first time watching, what we normally do is I basically try to stump the pastor by, not really, but kind of sometimes, by asking questions to go a little bit deeper in what you talked about on Sunday morning. But today we're going to just kind of take a deep dive on this idea of Sabbath. So will you just introduce briefly the series that we started on Sunday and why you want to talk about Sabbath today?
Yeah, so the conversation that we started this Sunday just kind of took a look at the idea that God is calling us to live lives that are very good. When you consider the way that he created humanity and then the way that he creates all these things and then takes a look, steps back and said that his creation was very good, I think some of us have settled for lives that are okay or lives that are just good enough instead of very good. So for the next several weeks, we're going to be taking a look through Genesis, through the creation narrative to see what it is. What's the blueprint by which we can be very good as husbands and wives, how we can be very good as friends, co-workers, so on and so forth. I'm excited. It's going to be good.
Yeah. And so you mentioned this week we talked about just the very beginning, creation, how we were created. And you mentioned that right after God created man and woman, Adam and Eve, he rested.
Yeah.
And that's called Sabbath.
Yeah.
And that we wanted to talk about that today.
Yeah, and the reason we want to talk about it is because not only does God kind of demonstrate this for us, he kind of models it for us. He creates all that is the world, and then he takes a moment to breathe. He steps back, he sees that it's good, and then he takes a full day of rest. And again, we talked a little bit about, I don't know if God actually needed rest or if he was just modeling what it looks like for us. But then in Exodus, we read that there's actually instructions that he gives through Moses to the church or to his children on what it means to rest. In Exodus, it says, the Lord gave these instructions to Moses. Tell the people of Israel, be careful to keep my Sabbath day, for the Sabbath is a sign of covenant between you and me from generations to generations. It is given so that you may know that I'm the Lord who makes you holy. So what the Lord is kind of laying out for Moses is this idea that you will work 6 days, and on the seventh day you'll rest. And the reason that that was so important, according to what we read here in this passage, is that God wanted the people to always remember he was their source. Their source wasn't the product of their work. Their source was the God who had created them. So by resting on a seventh day, it not only allowed the crops to rest, it not only allowed the cattle to rest, it allowed the people to rest, but it also reminded them that he is their source. And that's the important part of Sabbath. It's one of those things that reminds us that God is the source, and it allows us to kind of rest.
Which is so just anti everything that we hear these days, because hustle is like the buzzword. It's almost like to hustle is to be holy. And so how does that kind of fit into what Sabbath looks like for us today?
Well, if you're trying to fit the culture of hustle into Sabbath, it probably doesn't fit all that well. Although to some degree it does. Here's what I mean. The practical aspect of Sabbath is that you work for 6 days and rest on the seventh. We live in a culture right now that works all year long and will try to rest for 2 weeks. So we live for vacations. You've heard people say that.
If there weren't copyright, I would sing everybody's working for the weekend. But
there you go.
Darn.
Don't want to get pulled down. Nobody wants that. Anyway.
They're here for the banter, John.
Well, we need to get Jon and Emma back up here then. But what we do find from a practical standpoint is what God is kind of laying out is you work as hard as you can for those 6 days, but on the seventh day you rest. So why that doesn't kind of fit in our modern day cultures, again, we're trying to work for the vacation. And what ends up happening, you've been on those vacations where you get there, unpack everything, and it takes you days just to get your head in the space where you can rest.
Yeah, it doesn't hit till like Friday, and then it's time to pack up and go home.
And then you're so stressed that you come back, and I've said this, I need a vacation from my vacation, right? Unfortunately, what's happened is that rest, I believe, is a muscle. And if ignored all year long, it's a muscle that atrophies, and your body doesn't even chemically know how to shut it off. So Sabbath is a built-in tool by which a believer could really learn how to build that muscle of rest and why it's so important. Now, how it fits in today's culture is I do believe that if you get your rest right, your work is more productive. And we find this even about really successful men and women. Like, if they can figure out how to rest properly, sometimes it's going to take you 2 times the amount of work and 2 times the amount of time to do the thing that it would take you just, half the time and half the effort if you were just rested up. But I don't know about you. Everybody I talk to seems to be tired.
Yeah. Actually, this reminds me of a story that happened yesterday. So today is the last day of my semester. All of my final papers and everything are due today. And last night, I was so tired. I was trying to stay up and keep working on stuff. And I finally texted some of my classmates and was just like, tell me it's okay to turn something in late. Like, I just need to hear, go to bed. It's not the end of the world if this assignment is late. And so they all basically, I told them to tell me I was dumb, and they were very quick to honor that request. But then what happened is, I got a good night's sleep, and I woke up this morning. And I know a good night's sleep is not Sabbath, but I knocked it out. I got everything done.
Absolutely.
Even though I had made peace with the idea that it might not get done until tomorrow, because I just needed that rest, and my brain worked so much better this morning.
What Sabbath looks like from a really practical standpoint is, according just from how to actually live this out. I have learned how to schedule a day where my heart and head is just focused on the things that feed and energize me. There's no work. I'm not trying to knock out the dad's to-do list. I'm not trying to take really stressful calls. And I actually live that out in schedule. So on my calendar, Sabbath is laid out. I enjoy getting haircuts. I know that sounds crazy because it doesn't look like I've had one in a while. But every other Friday, I love going to my barber shop. Shout out to my boy Kels, who cuts me up. We have good conversation. Every Friday, I have breakfast. Sometimes it's with people. It's always friends. I'm not trying to have deep, hard conversations with people on Friday. Every Friday, I'm trying to read a book that I enjoy, drink some coffee that I enjoy. I'll watch a show, or I'll do some screen time, but I try not to do so much that I'm numbing myself, because that's important. And that's really kind of what Sabbath looks like for me. And I know that it's a little tough. Not everybody can do that type of dedication, but I think it's important to consider, what are you doing? What time are you cutting away to allow your body to rest?
You mentioned something that I think is super crucial in this conversation, the idea of numbing yourself. And I think we can sometimes think that we're resting, but really what we're doing is kind of trying to check out. Like, for a while for me, I was watching 7 hours of Netflix in a row and calling it Sabbath, and really I hadn't gotten off the couch for 7 hours, but at the end of the day, I was no more rested, no closer to God, no closer to being human than I had been when it started, and it wasn't actually restful behavior. So how would you say, for those of us who don't even recognize good rest anymore because we're so bad at it, what does it look like to rest?
Yeah, first of all, it looks like slowing down, so we can start with pace. I do believe that just the stress of just working through a schedule is literally killing people, for lack of a better term. So slowing down is good. I think, to your point, and we've talked about this in the past, I think a better word for some people might actually be play and not rest. I think God is honored when we enjoy ourselves. So what does play look like? That keeps my mind engaged. That's the thing with numbing. Our mind's not engaged. We're trying to shut everything off to the point that we're not thinking, and that's where it can get somewhat dangerous. So what's play look like? What do you enjoy doing? What brings a smile to your face? I think God is honored in that.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're just kind of listening and wondering, a lot of times people find going outside. There's just something about being outside that helps people be present and in the moment in Sabbath. There's also something about creating and working with your hands that might look totally different. For you can go spray paint a wall and it'll look beautiful, and I would just look like I had defaced a wall. But I love to bake and create beautiful cupcakes.
Yeah.
So just kind of start thinking about, what are those things where you feel present, where you may be moving. Rest doesn't mean just being absolutely still all day, but some part of you is just connecting with God, connecting with others, and just not working, not stressing.
Yeah. I also know that, for me, Sabbath isn't complete without time and focused conversation with the Lord. I'm not saying that this should be a 4-hour prayer fest or reading fest. I'm not saying you have to walk around with scripture and reciting it, although some of that is helpful from time to time. I do believe that your Sabbath should include a time where you are focusing your energy and heart to not only speak to God, but to hear God. So we're kind of running a little long on this format. We normally don't go this long. So I want to give some really practical homework to everybody who's watching. If you've never done Sabbath before, this is the two things I want you to do. I want you to, first and foremost, I want you to have a conversation with someone you love and trust about the things that energize you. I want you to have that conversation first with no judgment. Like, this isn't what is a thing that you enjoy doing to that point of playing that energizes you. So that's priority number one. And then priority number two is I want you to consider your calendar and figure out what day would work for you. Now, again, some of you, the whole day, and that's tough, so you might have to work up to it. My suggestion for those of you who are a part of a church faith community, Sundays are a great day. You worship the Lord with your family. You're bringing them home. What are you doing with the rest of that day? And I want you to actually attempt a Sabbath. Spend the day, look at your calendar, try sometime in the next week or two to kind of schedule out that day and live a Sabbath fully, and then let us know. Send us comments, emails. We'd love to hear your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be continuing this very good series.
Yeah.
It's a very good series called Very Good. We'll be here Sunday at 10
Puns
a.m.
don't stop.
online or in the room. And we would love for you to be here. Will you give us like a 2-second preview of what we're talking about?
Yeah, Adam and Eve, we're built for relationship, and I promise you, you have read that story wrong, or someone has read that story wrong to you. I cannot wait to jump into the Adam
me neither.
and Eve
Now I'm
narrative.
intrigued.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys on Sunday at 10.